Bloviating hairdo Jim Acosta has been banned from the White House, at least temporarily, after refusing to shut up and playing keep away with a female White House intern. Then, Democrats advocate for segregated campuses, but nothing new there, and leftist thugs try to kick in Tucker Carlson's door in the middle of the night. An awful shooting occurs in California, but the political activists are already out in force. Finally, the mailbag. I'm Michael Knowles, and this is The Michael Knowles Show. The star of CNN, Jim Acosta, has had his White House press badge revoked. For reaction now, we turn to Jim Acosta. Jim, what can you tell us about having the press pass revoked?
I'm Ron Burgundy?
Really strong, really interesting. We'll have to get to more of that in just 1 second. But first, let's make a little money with ExpressVPN. With all of the recent news about online security breaches, it's hard not to worry about where your data goes when you make an online purchase, or even if you just access your email. That could put your private information at risk. You are being tracked online by social media sites, marketing companies, and your mobile or internet provider. That's why I decided to take back my privacy using ExpressVPN. You would be crazy not to use a VPN right now. Everybody is stealing your data. Foreign governments, corporations. Anytime you are on the internet, your data is at risk. It's insane not to. ExpressVPN secures and anonymizes your internet browsing by encrypting your data and hiding your public IP address. Protect yourself with ExpressVPN. It costs less than $7 a month. $7 a month. That is like a medium-priced latte. Do not. Just think about what you've got on the internet. Just think about what you're looking at, what you've got in your email, what the financial information. Protect it for less than $7 a month. Find out how you can get 3 months free at expressvpn.com/Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L. That is expressvpn.com/Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, for 3 months free with a 1-year package. Visit expressvpn.com/Michael to learn more. This was Jim Acosta's favorite day. It was his favorite day, probably of his entire life. He gave us a little bit of reaction. He explained even more what happened after the scuffle with a White House intern and nagging the president with a bunch of questions. He gets his pass revoked. Here's what he says to Anderson Cooper.
Yeah, I went back to the White House actually to do a live shot for your program just before 8 o'clock. And when I arrived at the gate, the Secret Service came out and informed me that my press credentials were being, I guess, revoked temporarily, suspended. And the Secret Service officer came over to me and asked me to hand over my credential. And I did. And I told him, I said, listen, I know you're a professional. You're just doing your job. And thanks for your service. And handed him a credential I've had for 5 years.
I want to read a reaction from a few of your colleagues covering the White House. Jeff Mason from Reuters just tweeted, I was seated next to Acosta at today's press conference and did not witness him placing his hands, those in quotes, on the young intern, as the White House alleges. He held onto the microphone as she reached for him.
So that's what they're saying. That's what this is all about, that allegedly Jim Acosta pushed this girl, this White House intern who was trying to take the mic away. Just pause and take a moment and realize how much Jim Acosta loves this. This is what his entire career of being a journalist has built toward, is going on CNN, saying, I'm here, they took away my White House press badge, me, little old me, I-me, my, all through the night, I-me, my, I-me, my, I-me, my. He is loving every second of this. It's all about Jim being in the spotlight. And this is the story. This is actually why it's right for the White House to revoke his press credential. It's not because he played keep away with this reporter. Some people right now are trying to say that he physically assaulted this reporter. He didn't. He did get physical, though. He didn't beat her. She's not gonna have a bruise. But he did get physical in the moment. What he really did is play keep away with the reporter. And this is the big problem, is that Jim Acosta was there. He asked all of these questions. Trump answered the questions. He kept asking more. He kept making more accusations, and he wouldn't give up the microphone. Think about all these reporters in the room who could have asked questions if Jim Acosta had not been stealing the spotlight for himself. And then it's all designed to create this polarity between Jim Acosta and the White House. And then it's all about Jim Acosta. One of the things they tell you when you're trying to be a real journalist is not to make yourself the story. You, the reporter, are not supposed to be the story. The story is the story, and you're covering it. And Jim Acosta doesn't do that. Jim Acosta takes every single chance he possibly can to make himself the story. That's why his press credential should be taken away, because nobody benefits from this. Nobody benefits from Jim Acosta going out and making a star of himself. We should be covering the president, we should be covering the White House, not covering a bloviating hairdo. So the question is, did he put his hands on the woman? Did he actually assault her? You can take a look at the clip right now and judge for yourself.
That's
Mr.
enough.
President, I
That's
was going
enough.
to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr.
Excuse
President.
me. That's enough.
Mr. President.
Pardon me, ma'am. Pardon me. It keeps the microphone away. So if you couldn't see that, it's a quick exchange. We've slowed it down in super duper slow motion. If you can tolerate Jim Acosta's slow motion voice, take a closer look.
That's enough. Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks. That's enough. Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President, that's enough. Mr. President.
Pardon me, ma'am. My beautiful hairdo is about to fall out of shape, ma'am. No, I need more gel in the mousse in the...
So that's what's happening for those of you who are listening to it. And what happens is he's holding the microphone. He has gone on now for several minutes, monopolizing the time in this room. And so Trump says, that's enough. Okay, I've answered several of your questions. We're not going to get in a tit for tat here. And so the White House intern, this lovely young woman, comes up to take the microphone, and he pulls the microphone away. And as he pulls it away, his other hand is there and pushes down on her arm that's going to reach for the microphone. So the left is saying, well, she went for him physically. And then the right is saying, he hit a woman, he pushed or shoved a woman, he assaulted a woman. That's not the issue. That isn't the issue. She was perfectly within her rights to take the microphone away from this bloviator, and he, just reacting like the bloviating star seeker that he is, pulls the microphone away to try to keep it, and as he's doing that, he pushes her arm. That's the problem. He's not behaving like a gentleman. He's not behaving with any dignity befitting his occupation. The whole argument for CNN right now is that Donald Trump is this lout, this bore, this vulgarian, but CNN, they're the serious people. They're going to restore dignity to the country. And then this is dignity. This is what happens is you play keep away with this young White House intern after monopolizing the White House press corps' time, after monopolizing the president's time and preventing other reporters from asking questions. Are you kidding me? That's why his press badge should be taken away. It should be taken away because he's getting exactly what he wants right now. And what he wants is not to cover the White House. It's not to cover the president. It's not to cover national policy. It's to make himself famous and go on air with Anderson Cooper and pretend to be a super serious person. I'm actually sort of defending Jim Acosta here in that I don't think he's a woman beater, assailant or something like that. I think that he is a narcissist. And I have a little bit of insight into this because I knew Jim Acosta before Jim Acosta was Jim Acosta. Actually, when I was up in college, I was working on a campaign to try to get Mitch Daniels to run for president, the Indiana governor. And the campaign got big enough that CNN sent their young reporter, Jim Acosta, up to cover us. Here is a younger Jim Acosta and a younger me.
It might be a stretch to call him the big man on campus, but Indiana Governor Mitch Daniels is getting some presidential buzz at colleges across the country, thanks to Yale University students Max Eden and Michael Knowles.
So the thing goes on, and I spent an afternoon with Jim Acosta, and I left that thinking, because we were told, watch out, you're doing a right-wing campaign, and CNN's coming up, they're going to cover you poorly. And so I assumed they were going to be really critical of the campaign and really left-wing. It wasn't that. I don't think Jim Acosta is really left-wing at all. I don't think he's left-wing. I don't think he's right-wing. I think he's just all about Jim Acosta. And so the reaction to this, everyone's focusing on the disrespect that he showed to the woman. Think about the disrespect to his colleagues, to the President of the United States, to the White House. That's really the disrespect here. This is not how gentlemen behave. This is not how journalists are supposed to behave. And if they want to pretend in the mainstream media that they are restoring the dignity of that office, even if President Trump is allegedly degrading the dignity, then they've got to put up or shut up, and they shouldn't have showboaters out there. So it's very fun. And by the way, I mentioned this on the show the other day, that Trump gives everybody everything that they want. He high civic engagement, high voter turnout, unifies the Dems, unifies the Republicans, protects American labor and industries, also gets foreign foreign adversaries to lower their trade barriers and lower their tariffs. Everybody gets what they want. Jim Acosta gets what he wants to. He gets to look super serious and become the story again. But how much longer are we going to tolerate this guy becoming the story? Speaking of actual threats to journalists, not fake threats like a 90-pound White House female intern and the president making fun of Jim Acosta, Tucker Carlson has been attacked at his home. Tucker Carlson, fortunately, he wasn't home at the time, but there was a major left-wing attack, and it tells you everything you need to know about them by what they were chanting, how his wife had to hide in fear in the pantry as they tried to bust in. Before that, speaking of entering people's boudoirs, let's talk about Purple Mattress. I love Purple Mattress. You know that I proselytize Purple Mattress. If you're struggling to get a good night's sleep, you've got to try it. I naturally have back pain. It runs in the family. I've tried a lot of different mattresses. Purple is completely unlike any other mattress. It's not like an inner spring. It's not like the memory foam. It's this new technology. It's unbelievable. It was developed by an actual rocket scientist. It's very unique because it's a totally unique mattress in that it's both firm and soft at the same time. It keeps everything supported, but I know that sounds crazy that it's both firm and soft. It is. Somehow it really is. It sleeps very cool. It feels zero gravity. This morning I woke up early to go do a news hit at 3 in the morning or something. By the time I came back, I kid you not, the first thing I said to sweet little Elise as I got back in bed, I'm dead bone tired. I said, I love our Purple mattress. I love it so much. It lulled me right back to sleep. 100-night risk-free trial. If you're not fully satisfied, you can return it for a full refund backed by 10-year warranty, free shipping and returns. Here's how you get a free Purple pillow with the purchase of a mattress. These things are expensive, so the Purple pillows, and you can get one for free with the purchase of a mattress. That's in addition to the great free gifts they're offering site-wide. Text COFEFE, C-O-V-F-E-F-E to 474747. Only way to get the free pillow. Text COFEFE, C-O-V-F-E-F-E to 474747, C-O-V-F-E-F-E to 474747, and get a free, super cool, sweet pillow. Love Purple. So while Tucker Carlson's family was trying to rest at night in their home, hopefully on their Purple mattress, this screeching mob of Antifa left-wingers attacked his house. Let me be clear. I'm not saying that they went into his neighborhood or they chased him out of a restaurant. They went to his house. They cracked his front door because they tried to bust in. These sick thugs tried to bust into his house. Tucker wasn't even home at the time. His wife was home making dinner, and she heard that, and she assumed it was a home invasion. So she had to lock herself in her pantry in fear for her life, text Tucker, call 911, because these sick left-wing thugs were trying to bust in. Here's some video of them.
Mailbag. We know where you sleep at night.
What a bunch of pathetic little sad, womanish, not womanly, womanish, unmanly, hysterical children thugs. How pathetic. I wonder what sort of relationship these little man children have with their fathers. Probably not great, I would guess. I think all of these Antifa, all of the screeching left-wingers in the street, whatever they're chanting, I think the subtext is, F you, Dad, I'm not, you can't make me, no. That's what I think the subtext is. I think these are psychologically very damaged people who have glommed onto a sick, perverse political ideology to fill the gaping, gnawing hole in their hearts because of the sick shame that they feel when they gaze at themselves in the mirror, the shame that their parents must feel to have raised such horrible failures of children like these. What shame they've brought on their families, with whom I suspect they don't have a very good relationship anyway. Awful, awful stuff. I bring this up for a couple of reasons. One, because of what they're chanting. We know that the left has been encouraging violent attacks on prominent right-wingers. We know that. That's been happening for a long time. But what they're chanting, they're saying, we know where you sleep at night. That's pretty sick stuff. But then one of the other chants they said was, no borders, no wall, no USA at all. That's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with people who are openly calling for the destruction of the United States. This is the same group in D.C., by the way, called Smash Racism DC, which chased Ted Cruz out of that restaurant. So they're calling for the abolition of the United States. A lot of these videos now have disappeared from social media because obviously they're quite violent. Now, what the left is saying in response is they're saying that there are right-wing extremists too. What about that guy who sent the mail bombs, none of which went off a couple weeks ago? What about him? See, people on both sides. Okay, so what you're pointing to is one homeless stripper with a Make America Great Again hat who failed to commit violent acts against left-wingers, who failed 100% to commit violent acts against left-wingers. Okay, yeah, bad guy. The entire right unified and condemned that guy. Now, what the right is pointing to are these mobs of violent wackos who were busting down Tucker Carlson's door, who were attacking Ted Cruz in public, attacking Mitch McConnell in public. And how are the mainstream left-wingers reacting? They're encouraging it. The right condemns their lunatics. The left encourages it. Political commentators, mainstream ones, and elected officials alike, Maxine Waters, Eric Holder, Hillary Clinton. And just to look at the talking heads, I often recommend that people read Vox.com, that left-wing website, insane left-wing hack website, but it's good to read it to figure out what the left is thinking. I encourage people to go read that. A writer at Vox.com, Matthew Iglesias, this is how he responded to this attack on Tucker Carlson's family. Quote, I think the idea behind terrorizing his family, like it or not as a strategy, is to make them feel some of the fear that the victims of MAGA-inspired violence feel thanks to the non-stop racial incitement coming from Tucker, Trump, etc. The victims, Tucker Carlson's victim, the victims of what? The victims of tweets? The victims of enforcing our laws? The victims of having a border at all? Is that what you're saying? So he's defending these thugs. This is a very prominent left-wing commentator at perhaps the most prominent left-wing online media outlet, defending it. He then goes on, because that wasn't enough to defend them. He says, I honestly cannot empathize with Tucker Carlson's wife at all. With his wife at all. I agree that protesting at her house was tactically unwise and shouldn't be done, but I'm utterly unable to identify with her plight on any level. Right, because you're a child. Because you're a little whiny child. I wonder what relationship you have to your family, too. Speaking of you, because you're lumping yourself in, Matthew Iglesias, with all of these sick little children who are trying to commit violence against an innocent woman for the crime of being married to a television talk show host. Sick stuff, really, really sick stuff, and he's defending. So don't ever let them tell you that there's a moral equivalence between the left and the right. Oh yeah, there's a Trump fan who sent a pipe bomb, and there are left-wingers who attack people's houses. It's all the same. No, the entire right condemned the pipe bomb homeless stripper. Donald Trump came out and said he should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But when the left does it, they're encouraged by elected officials and by these news media outlets. He goes on. I mean, Matthew Iglesias went on this crazy Twitter rant today. He said, I met a woman who didn't leave the house for months because she was afraid of being picked up by ICE and never seeing her U.S. citizen kids and husband again. What sense was there in terrorizing her family? She's in violation of the law. She's a foreign national. We have laws for a reason. We have a border. We have to be able to decide who comes into the country, who doesn't come into the country. What he actually said is, I met a criminal who didn't go out very much because she didn't want the cops to catch her for her crime. Okay, yeah, it's too bad that she committed a crime. She shouldn't have done it. But we have to have a border, because when you don't have a border, you incentivize horrible things, like 60 to 80% of young women and girls who cross the border illegally being raped or sexually assaulted, according to the Huffington Post and Fusion and Amnesty International. Like human traffickers bringing drugs and children across the border to do nefarious things with them. Like unvetted people, like the national security risk that it poses. Like the fact that every other country on earth gets to determine who enters and who leaves the country. Mexico gets to, Guatemala gets to, Honduras gets to, Nicaragua gets to, but the United States not allowed to. Okay, absurd comment, and true moral idiocy from this guy. Last night, I was at this event at Loyola Marymount with Drew. We did a joint speech, and at this speech, race became a big issue. There was an exclusively black student group who came and they were protesting and they were very angry. And this really reminded me of some of the insanity that's going on right now at the college campuses. At Ohio University right now, there is a proposal to have a minorities-only gym, a gym that can only be used by racial minorities. Now, I assume that the campus administrators are going to tell us that the gym has this equal facilities to the gym for white people. It's just separate. You might call the Jim, I don't know, the separate but equal Jim. You have Democrats advocating for racial segregation because there is nothing new under the sun. Plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. Nothing changes ever. And this is going on across the country. There is a self-segregation that is going on. There is an insistence by minority students that we return to the days of racial segregation. There are a couple reasons for this. One reason is that they don't know anything. They don't know anything about history. They don't know anything about politics. They don't know about the American founding, and they don't know about the real state of politics in America. The other reason is that victimhood carries a currency today. It carries a real currency. There is a social status associated with victimhood. Obviously, you can look at one particular example of affirmative action and say that victimhood carries advantages because if you can show that your race or your sex or whatever has been historically oppressed in the United States, then you gain an advantage in college admissions. But it also carries a social advantage beyond that. At this event at Loyola Marymount, there was this group of exclusively black students, and they came in and they had duct tape on their mouths, and they were protesting. What they were protesting, I don't know. The suggestion seemed to be that they were being censored, and so they were going to protest that. But of course, they weren't being censored. They put the duct tape on their own mouths. So Drew and I confronted them to show the hollowness of this victim ideology. Here it is.
All right, this will be our last question of the evening.
Well, you know, before we go, I should point out there are people in the back of the room who have put tape over their mouths as though they've been censored, as though they're not able to speak. So I'd just like to take the opportunity. Nobody is stopping you from speaking. We're actually inviting you to speak. If anybody would like to come up and ask a question, now's your opportunity. You can cut the entire line. Would anybody who has masking tape over their mouths, well, you don't have masking tape. Oh, you can come ask a question too. But I mean specifically the people who are making a statement and saying, I am being censored. Would any of you like to remove the masking tape, which you put on yourself, and come up here and ask a question? Or would you rather stand back there and play the victim? I think we got my answer. Okay. Next guy in line.
Let's hear it. He's been waiting.
How did I know that that was going to happen? They stand there. For those of you who couldn't see, they're standing there with the tape, and they're just staring. And they're staring, looking, if they look slack-jawed if they didn't have tape on their mouths, holding their mouth up, because the point that they're trying to make is totally empty. But it is a wonderful reflection of race hustling and race politics in America, because they put the tape on their mouths themselves. They did it themselves. They did it because there is a currency to being a victim. And when you call them out for it, and when you say, you're not a victim at all, you're here, you can speak, use that beautiful hand that God gave you to take the tape off your own mouth, the tape that you put on yourself, and speak. Use your voice, use your political speech, use the very thing that makes us human, the ability to have meaningful speech. Use it and we'll engage and we can talk. They can't do it because they have nothing to say, other than insinuation and race hustling nonsense. To suggest, the suggestion on their signs that they were holding up is that Drew and I are racist. I don't know where they got that from. I don't know what their evidence is, that Drew and I were somehow preventing them from speaking. So I wanted to point out that nobody's preventing them from speaking, but nobody is. Candace Owens started this walk away campaign. Now she's calling it Blexit, I think, the black exit from the Democrat Party, because for so long, black voters have voted 90% with Democrats, between mid-80s and low 90s% with Democrats. And it's bizarre that a race would vote so uniformly with one political party. You don't see this with other races. And she's saying you can walk away. You're being sold a bill of goods. And what they're being told is that the Republican Party is racist. Conservatives are racist. They hate you. They don't like you. They don't want you. They want to hurt you. Whatever sick lies that they're being told by race hustlers. And so they've gone along with this. Nobody is trying to stop you. Nobody's trying to stop you from speaking. Freedom is a wonderful thing. Opening up your mouth and using your political speech and engaging with people with whom you think you disagree, even though I suspect you probably don't disagree on very much, but you don't know that because you're so interested in looking at yourself and preening and making yourself into a victim that you won't actually engage and open your mouth and talk to your fellow Americans. Really sad, really pathetic. That university has clearly failed them, and their families have failed them too. There's a theme, I think, growing today among the people we're looking at on the left. And this is a theme broadly. that as social structures have collapsed, as family structures have collapsed, local communities have collapsed, people are really falling into political idiocy and political extremism on the left. And it's a sad state of affairs, and it's being encouraged by elected officials. You know, now the guy who was running for governor of Florida, Andrew Gillum, he's a socialist race hustler who baselessly accused Republican Ron DeSantis of being a racist. Absolutely no grounding for that whatsoever. He conceded because he got beaten by DeSantis, and then he unconceded because Democrats can never concede an election. They just need to dig up a few more dead votes, and then they'll be able to put him over the top. So he's unconceded. Stacey Abrams, who is running in Georgia for governor of Georgia, she has unconceded, or maybe she didn't concede in the first place, even though she got beat. So Bernie Sanders has come out now, and he is blaming racism for not electing Stacey Abrams, who's black, and Andrew Gillum, who's black. Blaming racism. That's all they've got. That's the only thing that they can say, and it's meaningless. And I highly recommend it. It was a cathartic moment last night. When you go out and you say, here's your opportunity, tell me everything you want to tell me. They won't say anything because there's nothing to it. There's nothing to the charge at all. It's just sick race hustling, and it's the sign of a desperate Democrat Party. You know, one of the great aspects of the midterms is that in those key races, the Democrat candidates whom the party really wanted to propel, really wanted to make into stars, failed. Beto O'Rourke got beaten. Beto O'Rourke, Stacey Abrams, Andrew Gillum was being talked about as a possible Democrat presidential nominee. They all got beat. And as a result now, there was a poll that Hill TV took. It was the Hill TV American Barometer poll. 680 Democrat voters, so a relatively small sample size, nevertheless. Who do you think came up first? We know all the people we've talked about as possible 2020 candidates. Joe Biden, Hiawatha, Cory Booker, Hillary is still being talked about, the revivified corpse of Hillary Clinton marching on to her 75th try at the White House. So Joe Biden got 168 votes. He came in second. Bernie Sanders got 123, came in third. Hillary somehow found 80 votes. Kamala Harris, 28 votes. Mike Bloomberg, 27 votes. Do you know who came in first? None of the above. None of the above won the Democrat preference poll. And this is especially true among younger voters. So for older voters, they still selected none of the above, but that the percentage increased among younger voters, and which is obviously the case. Nobody wants Hillary Clinton to be president, though they might nominate her anyway. All of these desiccated, old, corrupt, crony Democrats, all they've got is they're running on resentment. They're running on racism and sexism and all that sick hustling. They've got no issues to back them up. And Democrats want a different choice. I'm not surprised. But their future stars just got beaten. They're out. Michael Avenatti is probably going to start wearing an orange jumpsuit pretty soon, as he's been referred for criminal investigation by the Senate Judiciary Committee. They've got nobody. They've got nothing. They're running on empty. That's why they run on racism. And it's really sad. We should speak for just a second about the shooting in Thousand Oaks this morning. This shooting happened very early in the morning. It was a massive shooting. 12 people are dead so far. Also, the gunman is dead. And a lot of people are injured up there. This was in a country music bar, a country music dance bar. This guy comes in and just starts shooting. It turns out he's a Marine Corps veteran. He served in Afghanistan. And already, of course, the gun control activists are out. This was trending on Twitter within an hour, I think, of the shooting. This, obviously, prayers to the victims and their families. From the political angle, reacting to the political activists who are already trying to push for gun control, this is an interesting case because it's an ex-military guy who committed the murders. So this is a guy who was well-trained with weapons, who had security clearances, or had background checks at least, who knew how to use a gun, who, by any measure, when we're talking about gun control, we say that law enforcement and ex-military should be able to have guns. He had his guns. He purchased the guns legally. The gun was not an AR-15. They always try to, on the left, say that AR-15s need to be banned and this will stop the problem, even though virtually nobody is killed every year from AR-15s. The vast, vast majority of people killed in gun incidents, those incidents involved handguns. This guy used a handgun as well. So none of the boxes that they would typically be pushing out for gun control would qualify in this case. However, there is one aspect which is not gun control, which might have helped prevent this shooting, which is that in recent years, deputies have interacted with this guy for domestic disturbances. Actually, a sheriff's deputy was one of the victims, one of the people. He went in, he was first on the scene, he went in there to try to stop him. Unfortunately, he was killed. Deputies have interacted with this killer in recent years for domestic disturbances, and they came in and they realized he was almost certainly suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. He served in Afghanistan. A lot of soldiers come back with PTSD. It seemed like he was suffering from it. They couldn't do anything about it. They couldn't do anything about it because they couldn't involuntarily commit him. It's virtually impossible to involuntarily commit people to mental institutions today, and that's been the case for decades and decades. Because they couldn't do that, because they couldn't throw him in a loony bin to protect the public from him, 12 people are dead today. There is no gun law that they could have passed short of confiscation, and even then, there are 300 million guns in the country. Criminals will get their hands on guns. There's no gun law that they could have passed to prevent this shooting. But if you made it easier, I've been saying this every time there's a mass shooting, if you made it easier to involuntarily commit insane people who are a danger to themselves and to others, you could have prevented this shooting. That's the one thing you could have done that would have prevented it. But very few people are talking about it because it doesn't serve people's political agendas, especially on the left, and because it's a very difficult thing to say that we need to use the force of the state to be able to commit insane people who pose a danger. It's a tough thing. The right doesn't like it. The left doesn't like it. Nevertheless, it's true. Okay, we've got to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. We got a lot of mailbag coming up. If you're not on dailywire.com, that means you're on social media, but you probably won't be for long because you'll probably get censored. Go to Daily Wire. It's $10 a month, $100 for an annual membership. You get me, you get the Andrew Klavan Show, you get the Ben Shapiro Show, you get to ask questions in the mailbag, you get to ask questions in the conversation. I think I'm coming up on that next, by the way. You also get the most important thing in the world, which is early access to Another Kingdom. You get to watch Another Kingdom on Mondays. Other people who are not subscribers have to wait years and years and years, or at least until Friday, to get the audio. You'll get to see the whole thing with all of that artwork. And oh yes, there it is, the Leftist Tears Tumblr. You get the Leftist Tears Tumblr. I wish that I'd brought some of these last night to Loyola Marymount so that I could have used them to swim my way off of the campus. You need yours as well. It's the only FDA-approved device to handle salty, radioactive, delicious leftist tears. Go to dailywire.com. We'll be right back with the mailbag.